everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Jams and Tea podcast where we spin the jams and spill the tea. And this week, we missed you last week. So we're coming at you today with a little helping of some extra stuff and the stuff that we were normally going to cover. Because last week, we were going to cover the latest album from pop sensation Ariana Grande, her new album Petal, as well as the latest album, the return to records. We're getting the new project XXXX from Arca themselves. And we're also going to talk a little bit about some other stuff that we've been listening to. So I'm going to throw it to Jen real quick so that we can talk about, at least mention some newer stuff, including, but not limited to, the return of one of my favorite figures in the modern hip hop scene, Miss Rico Nasty. Jen, tell us a little bit about this.
Yes, Rico Nasty's new album, RX. I'm like a day one Rico Nasty fan. She did a virtual concert at my college when I was in my undergrad. So
Whoa!
I got to like watch an exclusive live stream of her performing a bunch of stuff off a Nightmare Vacation, and I love her
Sick.
debut album. So that was a really nice time. I had a great time working with the people that put that virtual show together. Felt like an immense privilege. And so I've always had a special place in my heart for Rico Nasty's music and her project Anger Management, a collaboration with Kenny Beats, is one of my favorite rap albums
Penny!
of Kenny. One of my favorite rap projects of the past like decade, Anger Management. Just insanely good mixtape with some insanely good beats on it. And her writing some classic beats like stuff off of Jay-Z. So really showcasing her as a really effective trap performer. And her album from last year, Lethal, did not get a lot of buzz. And in fact, I think we could have covered it, but we decided not to, or it got away from us, or whatever.
Mhm.
But this new album, RX, how happy are you to know that Kenny Beats is back on this one?
Mr. Kenneth Bloom himself. Hell yeah.
On the first track on this CDG Foams, when I heard her call out for Kenny, it was rapturous. And this album, RX, is my favorite Rico Nasty project because it's her and Kenny Beats fully committing to hardcore hip hop and rage music, which
Mhm.
has always been my favorite kind of style of Rico's performing. I think the more energetic that she is, the more I enjoy it.
Mhm.
And RX, if I had to sum it up quickly, is her most energetic, high octane, loud project that she's ever made, and it's the best. It's a tight, barely over 20-minute album, and just like with the Tierra Whack, it's all fundamentals.
Mm.
And that's what I love about it. So, if you got a lunch break and you need to pep yourself up real quick, go put on this Rico Nasty album RX, and you're gonna have an amazing time. I highly recommend this album. So I wanted to make sure that I shouted it out on this episode, even though we didn't necessarily have time to give it a full segment.
And I completely endorse any and all recommendations towards Miss Nasty, of course, because frankly, the world is simply a better place with more trap metal in it. And we need more people furthering this specific aspect of this sound because it's awesome. And we also just don't get charismatic performers in Rico's lane and who do it as well as she does. Like, I highly recommend, like, if even if you're somebody who's not super familiar with her, you need to go and like dig back just because I wouldn't say she has that many like existing projects that are amazing holistic albums, but like if you haven't heard her best songs, you are literally missing out on one of the coolest and like most fun voices in modern hip hop. And I would say that this is easily one of her stronger and more consistent and more holistic projects. Like she's somebody who's very no nonsense. Get in, get out. 20 to 25 minutes is kind of the average ideal length for her stuff. And it's buoyant and bright and nasty sounding. In fact, I think this is like the ugliest Rico Nasty sounding project, which is kind of why I would also place it in the upper echelon of her stuff.
I also want to tell you about something very special that happened this week.
Please, yes, do that.
I saw clipping.
Thomas
Me,
Jefferson himself.
me and my wife went down to Nashville to the Basement East, one of my favorite music venues in the
It
world,
looked so sick.
to see my favorite band. And I
Mm,
was like reminded as I was listening to a bunch of clipping albums this week. I was like, oh yeah, these guys have been, if you made me choose, these guys have been my favorite band for nearly a decade now.
based choice.
And speaking of nearly a decade, the surprising thing about this tour is that it was not actually necessarily to promote Dead Channel Sky.
Hmm.
It was for the 10th anniversary of my favorite clipping album, Splendor
Splendor
and
and
Misery.
misery. Yeah.
So we got to hear almost all of Splendor and Misery throughout the show. We got to hear a bunch off of Dead Channel Sky. There's this great moment where David starts doing code and then gets to the part where he's interpolating in 'em out. They
Hmm.
transition into Air 'em Out, finish that song, and then go back into code and finish code. And that's just like one of the best live music moments I've had in a
Oh,
long, long, long time. Also, big shout out to Open Mike Eagle and Cooling Prongs, who were the
yeah.
opening acts for clipping. Both shows I really enjoyed. This is going to be a contender, absolutely, for the best concert that I've been to this year. Full stop. I had an incredible time.
Fuck yeah, that's awesome. I would love to be able to catch them sometime because obviously, I mean, like Davi Diggs, still my number one gold medal, greatest rapper of all time, in my personal opinion. And I mean, from what you sent me and from what I saw of like the footage of the concert, dude has just never been more on. Like it's like the 10 years since the album that's being celebrated came out. It's like it didn't even pass. He just sounds as young and as hungry as he ever has, and it's fucking sick. So absolutely fuck yes. I mean, y'all know we
Catch the
ride for clipping by now. You know what
Yeah,
we're
catch the
about.
tour if you got a chance. You're gonna have an amazing time.
Abso-fucking-lutely. And right before we get into the main reviews, I had to shout something out is that I recently, a friend of mine had sort of revealed that they did the album artwork for a new album that was going to be independently released very recently for a band solo project indie music act called Confluence. They recently released an album called Red Ribbons and Nicotine. And I gave this a listen just because I said that I would. I told my friend just because, like, hey, like we love to promote independent music on this show. And I gave this a listen and was like instantly like, oh, like the people in our audience who mess with the independent recs that I've given before are gonna mess with this, particularly if you are a fan of people like Lauren Outher, who I thought of so many times listening to this. I really would check this out. It's a pretty relatively short project. Like it's a little bit north of like 30 minutes. Like it's kind of like that Rico Nasty project. It's so short that you just kind of owe it to yourself to listen to the whole thing. But if you like a nice combination of kind of tasteful, like U2 adjacent indie rock, I would really check this out. There's also something kind of Baroque about the instrumentation on here, and the vocal performances and lyricism are spectacular, confessional, a little bit jagged, just how I like exactly the way and kind of writing that I really get on board with. But yeah, I would really recommend checking this out just because it's something unique, it's something independent, it's not something you're going to, just get shoved in front of you. You kind of have to kind of go and seek it out. But if you're into this kind of thing at all, particularly Lauren Outher's early EP, Five Songs for the Dysphoric, my probably favorite thing that particular creator has ever made. If you're looking for a bit of a defining queer experience record for the year 2026, I think that this might do you just fine. So please go and check that out. Support a nice independent artist. And now we get to the meat of it. And boy, howdy, do I mean the meat when we're talking about fucking Arca. Arca is an artist I have been mentioning a lot in the last couple of years, which is funny because she hasn't really been in the conversation quite as much. But it's because she's been mostly in the background. In 2020, one of the first episodes we ever did on this show was covering their album Kick One. And at the time that album was released, and I actually got a hold of it because that album leaked like 3 months ahead of its actual release date. And I was just like, oh, Arca, that's the person who produced Utopia, which is my favorite Björk album, which is nobody else's favorite Björk album. But I mean, fucking listen to that thing and tell me that the production doesn't absolutely smack your titties because it does with me. And so Arca's this sort of figure that's just sort of been lurking in the background, and in 2020 came out with Kick One, and it was like, oh, we're numbering our projects now. Are we gonna do like a series? And then in the subsequent year, they were like, yeah, we are. Here's five fucking massive reggaeton, IDM, electro, pop, fusion albums that are all one massive suite and gave us the Kick series, a project that Riley and I did a solo video on just because we were big fans of the first Kick project. And we wanted to talk about what a fascinating entry in the musical climate that it was, just because nothing sounds like it. And on a good day, nothing sounds like Arca's production. Arca is my favorite producer in the pop world, just because I've never heard an Arca produced song that doesn't like, kick my ass up one way and down the other. It is always fascinating, always innovative, always interesting, and all consuming. And there's this fascinating kind of body horror slant that they've got in their music. And obviously, Arca is a very forwardly facing queer presence in the music world, often collaborating with musicians like Sophie in the exact same scene that Sophie was in. And in many respects, kind of feels like the mantle holder for a lot of the things that Sophie stood for as a presence in music, which is why once she kind of gravitated over to making albums that were a bit more defined and had more of a band that was less esoteric than her early mixtapes. Now we're getting something that's a little bit more solidified. So I guess after the Kick projects, I was just kind of like, where do you even go from there? Just because that sound is like, it ranges from everything from ambient pop to Philip Glass style classical arrangements, IDM, reggaeton, like all kinds of crazy shit. And it's great. I love those records. That's an amazing project. But again, where do you go after that? You produce for Björk, you produce for Kalela, you produce for all of these people. So, as a defined artist, where is Arca at right now? And with this new project, I think I can confidently assert that the answer to that question is the fucking dance floor, motherfucker. Because despite the fact that this album art looks like it came straight from the pages of H.R. Giger's sketchbook, this whole fucking thing is a lot of ass throwing music. This whole thing is a lot of gritty, industrial, heavy beats. And some of it is atmospheric, some of it is weird. It is very bizarre, very sexual. And it's everything I kind of want out of a modern Arca project. This kind of sees a return to a little bit of the mixtape energy of some of their earlier stuff. And I feel like the sound since the Kick series has a little bit more definition now. And as a result, I think this is a absolutely stellar project. I can't exactly imagine that it's going to be everyone's cup of tea because it's still so very quintessentially them in the respect that it is gnarled and ugly in many respects in a willful way. But I love the embrace of that. The Cronenbergian energy of this album is just something I really fucking love. So I know that you've listened to things that Arca has produced, but I doubt you were as familiar with her and her world of music. And honestly, this is a fairly okay introduction to see what it's like. So, how did this play for you?
Yeah, you're correct. I have not made my way through the Kick suite, so this is my first time listening to Arca doing Arca. And what I found really interesting about this album is how it embraces a more retro cyberpunk aesthetic
Hmm.
from the cover arts to some choices in the instrumentation to I wrote down at one point with regard to I wrote down the Diva song, but it's called Heart. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
and I wrote down at one point Vocaloid Shodan
Yeah. Yeah,
while
yeah,
listening to
yeah.
the song Heart because it has this glitchy, very ominous introduction, and it's this combination of industrial dance music with this kind of very ominous Baroque narrative dressing with a lot of these lyrics that reminded me a lot actually of Perverts. Like if Perverts was a lot dancier, you would
Sci-fi
have
perverts.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Perverts with a sci-fi bent to it.
Hmm.
Because the cloudiness of the first track, No End, is what really got me on that wavelength
Hmm.
of thinking about something more industrial and drony, but that has clearly this influence of cyberspace
Mm.
working over it because this is in many ways an album about the digital world as a place where you can be present or a digital world or a kind of cyberpunk dance floor where you're connected with technology but you also still have a body and you can do the taconeando all night
Hmm.
and so I really love this kind of character portrait. And I loved the mixing in of church bells and very tangible, very concrete instrumentation with these very sharp contrasts. I'm thinking about the one of the first fully instrumental tracks on here, Syncope, which
Mm.
has these big keys that lead into these kind of Super Nintendo synths and then
Yes.
this really fast break beat. And I like the variety of tones that the instrumental tracks on this album has. It's very dynamic, and you know me, I love my dynamism.
Hmm.
So I love the avant-garde nature of being able to bring in these kind of old classic instruments with these cyberpunk IDM trap breakbeat stuff all across this album. Really sharp contrasts and with Cinch say it with me again, folks. It's a dance album that's about an ongoing transmutation of the self into a new form. Oh boy. So love Cinch, love the song Fuck, which is about, killing the father and bottoming to kill the father. Uh,
Yep, basically, more or less.
and I don't know. I found it difficult to get a kind of deep thematic interpretation out of a lot of the instrumental segments on this album.
Mm.
But what this album does accomplish is a really consistent aesthetic and a really consistent vibe that make those instrumental portions, especially when they're doing a lot of really big dynamic swings, really fun to listen to. And then you get songs like Taconeando, which sounds like a sample of somebody getting stabbed leading
Hmm.
into this absolutely nasty dance track.
Mm.
And it's just I keep saying it because it's just such a fun word to say. That taconeando,
Ñando.
the like dance move that she talks about that she keeps doing over and over again. God, it's so good. And then on Futurality, you've got these again with the big dynamism and the different instruments. You've got these fast drums with these screeching synths, and it's a very sparse track, but it's just so fast that it really drives itself forward. So I guess give me give me the deep lore. What is this? Does this like sit in contrast to Arca's previous work? Does this fit with the kick stuff? What's different about this one?
I would describe it like this, in that Arca's really early stuff, where it's like mostly producer driven and like super fucking like what's the word that I'm looking for? Avant-garde, really, is that it's like it is dance music and it is like pop adjacent, but it is intentionally ugly. It's like trying to make willfully challenging IDM out of sampling dance music that doesn't actually exist. And some of the like her earlier stuff is like weirdly confrontational because of that. Like you look at the album art for those, and they're just this like disgusting body horror Cronenbergs where you're just like, oh, what even the fuck is that? So like Arca's kind of always had this fascination with having this really confrontational, just really ugly aesthetic and embodying that, but also like using it as a kind of Trojan horse to get you to still shake your ass in the way that you would in any good, decent dance or pop album. And with the kick stuff, you really see them kind of billowing outward into different aspects of their genre. Again, like Kick 4 is a lot of really slow ambient pop. Kick 1 is a lot of industrial dance music. Kick 5 is a lot of classical compositions. Kick 3 is a lot of really, really rhythmic IDM. And then it's kind of going outward. And on this album, we're kind of seeing it all collapse together and kind of reform into the focus of their earlier stuff, but there's a bit more of a concerted effort to make this intentionally a bit more danceable. I would say that while it belongs in the same genre as their earlier stuff, it's also like it's not meant to be listened to in the same way, I guess. Is that the earlier stuff, it doesn't really obey rules in the same way that this album actually does. It just does it with more innovative, interesting, and kind of expensive sounding sounds. And like the aspect of like the body horror in their stuff is really more. There's something physical about this album. There's something very much like in these beats, there's like squelching. You hear sounds that don't feel like they should work in dance music because I mean they sound like they're sampled out of a fucking Hellraiser movie and they're just kind of incorporated into some gnarled ass beat. And a lot of them just kind of the deconstructed club aspect of their sound really feels like it's at the forefront, but not as deconstructed as it always has been. This is like the most mainstream solo Arca project that has come out so far. And thus, I find a lot of value in that because it's clearly her pushing herself into a place where this music can probably reach a little bit more ears. And if you have an ear for the stuff that's on this album, you can probably go back and find some of her more challenging stuff to be a bit more. I guess you can kind of meet it more on its level. This kind of feels like the opposite effect of like normally an artist would release an album like this first and then the enormous, ambitious, whatever the fuck project afterwards. But it feels like we've done the debut and sophomore album a bit in reverse, which I guess makes sense considering how long she's kind of worked in the background of the music industry. But like there's something kind of multimodal about Arca as an artist. There's this multilingual aspect to their identity that is very important to them. And like you can hear multiple different languages on all of their projects. And, their heritage is something that's very important. A lot of the times these songs are going to be named after concepts or ideas that are going to relate in some way back to Arca as a person, maybe esoterically, maybe not, but there's also something kind of ambient about this too. There's something just very primal about this album that can let you enjoy it not just as something as a vehicle for dance. It also just kind of works as something like if you like listening to those naughtier, wirier electronic projects, if you love stuff like Autechre, you're probably going to get something out of this just because this sounds like a more mainstream version of those tenors, of those strange sounds that they often work with. And it feels like Ark is kind of bringing that to a world that probably isn't super familiar with all of it. And I think that this serves as like a really interesting missing link to an area of music that has like nothing to do with the core central appeal of this actual album. And like nobody's really doing it like them. Nobody is making willfully challenging music like this that is also this fun. Because like think about challenging music in some respects. Like you compared it to Perverts, which I actually think is a great comparison. Think about that for a moment. Perverts is a project that was intentionally released to alienate people. Perverts is a project that Ethel Cain put out so that she could pleb filter her own audience.
And of
And
course, I'm the sicko who was like, I'm
we
in
we
love.
are the sickos, and I'm like, yeah, I'm a fucking low fan. I love this slowcore ambient, dark ambient shit. Like it works for me, and it's also like, again, it's ugly and queer and confrontational confrontational in a way that's going to scare people away and be like, oh, what are they talking about here? I don't know if I want to listen to this. Oh, they're using scary words. And it almost feels like this is in concert with that, but it has the exact opposite intention. Instead of trying to push people away, it's trying to lure people in. And I think that that's actually really smart. Like, it really shows you the dichotomy of like what it is to be a queer or trans artist these days and like your relationship with your audience. Because Arca clearly has gained an assembly of ride or dies, which I guess I'm a member of now, as it happens. But because of projects like the Kick thing, like you get fans from something like that, they're gonna follow you into hell because it's too weird to be able to forget how interesting that project actually was and how ambitious that project actually was. So honestly, this album doubles as both a successful reinvention of Arca's sound into something a little bit more mainstream and also a kind of gateway into a completely different world of music. And I think it's genuinely successful as both of these things. I think this album is fun as all hell. Like you already mentioned the song Fuck, which I think is just already like that tells you everything you need to know. The best song on this album is called Fuck. And it's like, yeah, and it's an absolute fucking heater. I love how, again, even the most accessible moments on here are naughty and unfriendly and strange. Like there are songs on here like Grip that just like nothing sounds
Yeah.
like the things on Grip. And I say things because the synthesizers are so squelchy and strange and non-mechanical that it's just like this sounds like an actual fusion of something biological and something mechanical into something that is completely alien. That's the main appeal of Arca is that they are such a talented producer. I can't name anyone who you can like go to for this in this same way. They just don't really exist right now. Even Sophie's sound was metallic. Sophie's sound was about rhythm and it was about being overwhelming. A lot of Sophie's best stuff is stuff that sounds like the MP3 format can barely even contain the sound of what's happening. Like it feels broader than your headphones are capable of giving to you. Whereas with Arca, I associate it way less with bluntness and way more with sharpness. This is an album that is about the metastasized wires and blades and all of this like icky shit, like crazy.
Stilettos.
Yeah, like all of that, like nastier, more jagged, like fucking crazy futuristic Warhammer 40K type of shit. Like this is the type of shit that a bunch of crazy ass like this would be playing in a club in like the Fifth Element or something. Like a crazy ass sci-fi world where everybody is debauched and everybody is indulging in this night of like just absolutely rampant hedonism, and it's a blast. I highly recommend this to basically anybody who's even a little interested. Like, if your experience with Arca is limited to that of, hearing maybe Kalela's Take Me Apart, which is basically the most normal her music has ever sounded, which is a fucking crazy thing to say if you've actually heard that album. But if you're a little bit more, familiar with their stuff that's been on like pop artist stuff, and you're like, I don't know if this like really intense shit is for me. I would give this a shot because this is gonna give you your answer. If you like this, you're going to like every other part of Arca to some extent. If you don't like this, then you can probably stay in the same lane that you were in before, because if you don't like this, I really can't imagine you liking any of their other stuff because it's a lot fucking weirder. But there's not many times with an art where an artist as unique as Arca is able to do this and not like compromise themselves. Because you listen to this, this is not an album where any compromises were made. Point blank, period.
And I had a lot of fun with this record.
It's a blast.
Thumbs up
Super
for
recommend.
Arca. My time for Kick might be arriving soon.
I would highly recommend it. Kick 2 is a little bit of a mess, but it's a mess with purpose. The rest of it, fucking phenomenal. Everybody go check out that video that we did on it. I'm very proud of that video and that Sophie video that we did once upon a time. Jen, of all the reviews that we have done in the year of our Lord 2026 since we have officially resurrected this show, I can't tell you with greater confidence that I was worried about reviewing an album more than I was worried about reviewing this one. Because here's the thing, is that this is going to be more of a discussion than a review because it can only be that for me. And if you're wondering what the delineation between the two of those things are, it has to do a lot with context. Now, the only time we've covered Ariana Grande on this show is when we covered Positions in 2020. And I went into that album a very, very big fan of her previous record, Thank You Next. I was never really on the pulse of Ariana ever. And Sweetener was like the album that really kind of broke containment with her. Like there's some songs on that album which I still think is a little bit of a mixed bag that still does favor its positive aspects, but like there are songs like Breathin' that I think are
All
masterpieces.
timer. That one in
Just
particular, all timer
like
song.
chill inducing. I still think that that is one of the best pop songs of the 2010s. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to pay attention to this girl's music because I never really have before, but it feels like there is something very special here regardless. And Sweetener's a bit of a mixed bag for me, but when Thank You Next came out and this followed right off the back of like three separate personal tragedies for Ariana that happened in the span of like less than a year, the media eye was really on her, and the fact that that album was debatably her best up until that point, and I would argue it is her best album, I mean, it's stunning that what she was able to pull off considering what was going on and how she wove that into the actual fabric and meaning of that. Like the Manchester bombings, the losing Mac Miller, like all of these things, breaking up with Pete Davidson, like all of that stuff informed that record in a way that felt meaningful. It felt like it had stakes, and it wasn't quite on the level of, the pop star who feels like they have to TMZ themselves and to make compelling drama for their album. It was just like, no, this is just where she was at the time and what she was dealing with. And it had some expertly done production, some great hooks. And you know what? I even go to bat for songs on that album that people fucking hate. Seven Rings, I think that song is good. Everybody fucking hates it. Sorry, I don't.
You
That's just
can't
me though.
sample my favorite things and not expect a
Okay.
decent song to come out of it. Like, come
Okay,
on,
thank you.
guys.
Somebody
I'm
somebody
also
is on
pro
my
Seven
wavelength.
Rings. I'll just put it on the record. I am pro
I
Seven Rings.
thank you. I
Aside from the genuinely like weird cultural appropriation
Yes,
stuff.
that is a very valid reason to take umbrage with that song. However, everything else, I really think people burrowed into themselves trying to find a reason as to why the ironic pop song shouldn't be ironic in this particular instance, TM or whatever the fuck. The point was, I was very much in Ariana Grande's corner because I loved that album. And once we moved into 2020, we got Positions, and it was, right in the midst of COVID, sort of towards the end of the year. And I will admit, that album did not hold my attention quite as much as the last 4 months of that year did because it was nothing but, oh my God, we got a clipping album. Oh my God, we got an Aesop Rock album. We got Phoebe. We got like all of this shit. So it was kind of difficult to just sort of sift through the abundance of riches that we had. That being said, Positions is a really lame album. It's just one of those records where it feels limp. It does not have the body that her previous records did. It was an album that was leaning into the relationship domestic bliss that she was trying to sort of construct as her new image, which felt really flimsy as an identity for an entire album, frankly. And it was just like a lot of try hard, I'm super sexy bars that I was just like, we don't need to be doing this. Especially, it's just like, Ariana, you are someone with sex appeal. Why are you trying so hard to lay on like this thick? Because it makes it feel like it's going against your own confidence. And then after that, I was just kind of like, eh. Then Eternal Sunshine came out,
I
and
was
it
to say,
was
what
like,
did you think of Eternal Sunshine? Because that's one that I actually like sat down and listened to and had really thorny thoughts about.
I did as well. It was basically a mixture. It was a halfway point between the previous two records for me. Is that one song would make me think of my favorite moments on Thank You Next, and another song would make me think of my least favorite moments on Positions. It was a lot of, there was also just a lot of pop star kayfabe on that album, as we like to put it with the when we reference Charlie XCX's Brat. And every single time it popped up on that record, it was like, oh man, it kind of feels like you've lost your edge at being able to feel sharp with this like you did on Thank You Next. It felt like it came from a place of like her commenting on how people saw her and how people like viewed her in a way that just felt really two-dimensional and like really uncharitable, even towards her own self. And it just made me not really understand the end product at all, honestly. It was a very confused album that I didn't really understand.
Can you believe that album had a I'm Back Bitch single?
Honestly, no, I can't
It really,
because
because Yes and was the lead
it
single for that
was.
album, and that's not an album that needs a I'm Back Bitch single.
No, 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 no. And so, like, after that album, I was like, I'm not like, if she makes anything again that people like talk about, I'll definitely check it out. But like, I think I might be moving away from this lady's music. And you know what? That's fine. Whatever. I still think that she is an immensely talented vocalist. Like, yeah, she's got the Mariah Carey whistle tone. It's pretty fucking impressive. But that's the thing is that I've never found like her raw vocal talent is impressive. I have always been more of a fan of the fact that I think she's a really, when she tries, I think she is one of the, if not the sharpest pop songwriter working right now. When she's fucking on, dude. Like, you go back and listen to her best stuff, and it's like, okay, yeah, like, all the cooks were in the kitchen for this. I get it.
She's always had that Swedish magic behind her.
Max fucking Martin. He always brings it, and with Ariana, he has never put a foot wrong. And then we have Petal here, which is the album that we're talking about, and I feel it's somewhat irresponsible of me to not illuminate on the surrounding context that this album has found itself within, either intentionally or unintentionally, regarding the current state of Miss Grande and how people are discussing her online and how this has become a very thorny topic about being able to point out kind of really scary just body image issues in the entertainment industry and also the overreach of fans commenting on women's bodies in ways that are deeply unflattering and not exactly sensitive in the way that these things should or need to be. And really, that's not what I want to talk about just because it's kind of sad and doesn't have too much to do with the music, except for the fact that this album is deeply, way more than any other thing that she's made, even more than Thank You Next, very much about all of the darkness of being Ariana Grande right now. It is
Yeah,
all,
ironically, this album doesn't really reflect the controversies currently surrounding it, but it's written and constructed in such a way that all that stuff has perfectly refracted off of it
yes,
to make it, for
mhm.
me, even more effective as a piece for her.
And I completely agree with that because there are lyrical moments, there are stanzas on this album that while listening to it for the first time, I got unfucking comfortable. Like I heard it and I was
I was
like,
also bewildered in a good way. I will go
yes,
ahead and say.
in,
Let me lay my cards on the table with this
yeah,
as
go
somebody
ahead.
who my opinion on Ariana Grande has not really ever been stated. Um I've never been like a hugely devoted fan, but I've always enjoyed her best work. Like I love
Yeah, I think that's
Thank You
fair.
Next as a full album, and there are several of her best songs just stay in rotation for me.
Yep, 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 yep.
I love The Way. I
Mhm.
love what's the one? Into You.
Into
God,
was
eternal
amazing.
banger.
Hmm.
Dangerous Woman, eternal banger.
Hmm.
And I even
Hmm.
like some of those songs off Eternal Sunshine. Like I was kind of making
There's a
fun
couple.
of Yes and, but that song is great. Bye is great.
Yep,
That
yep, yep,
album
yep.
has its moments, but with Eternal Sunshine, I found a lot of diminishing returns.
Yeah.
This, on the other hand, man, this album is fascinating because once I realized what it was kind of, sort of really doing, this is an album of kind of two shapes to me. But the first shape of it is the reclamation of agency
Yeah, 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 yeah.
via a heel turn, which
Yes,
I find so fascinating.
I
And
as I mean,
frankly, I kind of loved it because as soon as I realized how aghast I was at the gall of some of the lyrical moments on this album, and me not even being that passionate of a fan of Ariana, I was like, oh, she's got it. This could be very divisive in the fan base just because
Mhm.
this album is very
Loaded.
directly confrontational with its audience in a way that I was not prepared for, even off the back of Eternal Sunshine, which flirts with portraying Ariana as this kind of untouchable figure. But the way that this album constructs this character portrait of Ariana as someone who is essentially ruling a hell of her own making
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
incredibly interesting to think about as an example of a like big pop record. So let's get into it. What did you think about this? Let's get into the weeds.
I find this fascinating for every single reason that you also find it fascinating. And it also kind of proves my point in that I think that she's one of the sharper pop songwriters because this is an album that is about its songwriting. And you don't often always get that from, pop stars that are of Ariana's stature these days. Like sometimes it's a little bit more of an even-keeled mix. And that's not to say that this isn't musically compelling. Like I said earlier, Max Martin fucking brings it on this. And as well as her longtime like associate collaborators and producers as well. But specifically, if you see Max Martin's name on like the production list, you're going to be listening to one of the best sounding pop songs of the year, period. And the thing is that this is just so fucking consistent. I don't think that this has a moment that really lets itself down. It has moments that are a little bit less overwhelming or fascinating than other ones, and just sort of moments where it feels like it's repeating ideas that are more well hit on other places on the record. Specifically, the only like not miss, I think this is a good song, but the only song on here that feels like it doesn't quite have the chutzpah of the rest of it or the sharpness of the rest of it is Big Feelings. A little bit is the hook. But also, it's just dealing in a lot of ideas that feel as though they're better captured on other songs, particularly on my favorite song on here, which is Oh Well. And Oh Well to me is the moment where my brain kind of flipped over and I was like, oh, this isn't just an album that's got a bunch of good songs on it. This is a good album. Like, oh, I get it now. Because Oh Well is the song of the ruler of the hell of your own making, where everything, every slight, every unfortunate incident, every person that leaves your life, every selfish inclination you have, you dismiss it. You give it the oh well. And the way that she's able to just kind of itemize her entire life on this song is just fucking like, not only is this an ironclad, just really great fundamentals pop song, just the lyrics on here, fucking like, of the end, I feel it. Just don't know what to say. My dead ends are gathered around, dressed as friends, just so I don't get hurt again. Maybe this time can be different. I don't have to try to be responsible for the things that just aren't mine. It's a very frank, very like dismissive, very intentionally callous song that is also completely hollow. You feel that the person at the other end of this is fucking dead inside. And it's uncomfortable to listen to. There are moments on here where she will end some of these songs on a lyrical stanza that make me go like, that's a cry for help. Like this woman is like trapped and like she needs actual help. Because
Despite her saying on one point on the album, this is not a cry for help.
which in and of itself is like, okay, like thou doth protest too much for
So
sure.
the real intelligence and the thorniness of Petal comes on to Oh Well, which you get this really effective, and I'm gonna try to summarize it in maybe a more literary sense, but
Mm.
it's it's a person who's seeing a new disaster on the horizon, but is now ready to use all of the skills that they've built from previous just complete disasters in their life, and they know how to protect their own peace. But that's a process that can come across and can even be really, really toxic but it's
Callous.
also extremely freeing for the person that's able to take the initiative and get a little bit of self-soothing out of the isolation that comes out of a crash out.
It's embracing the heel turn, I feel like is the smartest thing she could have done here because I mean, she's at kind of critical mass right now in a way that she hasn't been since Thank You Next with the Wicked movies, with her being in the press, with her having all the headlines written about her and that relationship that she was in and people getting all, like, "Oh, she's a homewrecker." Like obviously her image is in a weirder place than it ever has been. So if you want to take back the narrative, then embracing the heel turn and becoming the villain, wearing the bad guy mask at WrestleMania, like that is how you end up doing this. But the problem is that by doing this, and by problem I mean why this album ends up working as well as it does, is that it's not just about embracing a villain status. It's about embracing a villain status of somebody who doesn't want to be a villain, but has accepted their place as one because it's easier than any alternative. Like Thank You Next is an album that's about I keep getting the same result, but I'm gonna keep trying over and over again because I have to. And Petal is the complete fucking opposite. It's I know that everything is going to end in disaster, and I'm going to try and prepare myself to survive it. And that means that I am going to deploy all of this shit that is going to hurt other people in the process. And I don't care because I have to save myself because if I don't, nobody else will. Like, this is an album that comes from somebody who's deeply fucking lonely. Like, you listen to the 34 minutes of this record, and it's like, I am a little concerned just on the merit of like, do you have like friends in your life to tell you like good things? Because I hope that you do, because it doesn't sound like you do. It sounds like you have surrounded yourself by yes men because everybody else left a long time ago. And it's kind of heavy. This is a 30-minute long album that feels really dense with its emotions. And honestly, I've been missing that from her because Positions was an album that just felt so lightweight and not committed to itself. Whereas here, I mean, you've got songs like Hate That I Made You Love Me, which is another phenomenal song conceit on here, which is, embracing that you have the control of another person and then like trying to kind of rationalize that they are the monster that you made them because you have agency in this situation. Like, she is not abdicating responsibility. She is basically accepting that she is responsible for all of the bad shit that has happened to her in the last couple of years. And hearing somebody reckon with that is just, I mean, it's fucking uncomfortable. But if you're a good enough pop songwriter, you can make all that work. And I would say that, like, Petal to me is her best album since Thank You Next, and probably her second best album overall, if I had to pick it, just because every, like, second of it feels essential in ways that Eternal Sunshine and Positions and some of her earlier stuff, aside from maybe like Dangerous Woman, didn't quite. There's always a little bit of dead air in Ariana albums, and in this one, it's trimmed back. It's minimal. The less essential moments on this album are still enjoyable, but they're less enjoyable and integral because they are less incisive. And so, if you want something that's a little bit lighter, there's some tracks on here that'll work for you better than they work for me. But I appreciate it that this album is, well, frankly, a dark night of the soul of sorts. Like, it is a complete pivot, and it's a very intelligent pivot, but it's also a pivot that's like, please get help. I really do hope that you do, just because, again, we live in a world where we have the precedent of things like the fucking 27 Club. We have Amy Winehouse. We have Janis Joplin. We have Kurt Cobain. We have X. We have Y. We have seen this happen so many times. And, like, it's hard not to get Karen Carpenter flashbacks sometimes. And it's like, I really hope that this does not lead down the avenues that it could. I hope this is just a moment where she is trying to find her footing and doing an exceptionally good job at it right before she's able to hit a stride again. But this is the kind of album that makes me feel a little bit bad that I like it so much, honestly.
And I think the secret to it, I think the reason that it's hitting so hard for you, and one of the reasons that it's hit so hard for me, is that as it goes along, it gets kind of more and more ridiculous. Like you have the song Like I Do,
Hmm.
which sounds like a song that would be in a horror movie about an evil pop star.
Yeah, yeah, it's some
Because
real
it's
Miley
it's
Cyrus
all
Black Mirror type shit.
yeah, and it's all about her being like, imagining this male detractor and then taunting him by the fact that she has a deeper connection with his romantic partner
Yep.
than he does because, my music is everywhere and I've been busy keeping your girl inspired is the most evil thing I've heard
Woo!
the song this year.
That is a genuinely evil song lyric in a way I deeply respect.
Yeah, I just wrote down after hearing that, yeah, this shit is evil. And then
A little
and then
bit, a
after
little
that,
bit.
and then after that, I just wrote, is this her reputation? Parentheses, good? Question mark.
Look, it's there are more than a few similarities here that would make me feel like this fits under that specific album archetype. And it's like being a reputation does not entail you being good or bad. It just entails you being a certain kind of place in your own narrative and whether or not you are good at taking a hold of that narrative. And
Yeah.
against all odds, it seems like she is like this last gasp from her really does feel like she was able to harness that. And I'm hoping that that means that maybe she's a little bit more in control than perhaps this music is projecting. Maybe that's cope on my hand. I don't know.
After, like I do, you get the moment of weakness in the
Mm,
conclusion of this album, which I think is a really great sequencing choice because you have
yes.
Never Get Over Me, which man, sounds great. It's got this swanky bass under it. Uh,
Oh, the rhythm on this album is like
Yeah,
exceptional.
yeah, yeah. Bad Thing, Bunny Hop has this
So much fun.
very, very blinding lights type melody to it with these
Should be a bigger hit,
glistening,
honestly, if I'm being
yeah,
real.
yeah, with this emo guitar. And
Mm,
this and the last track, Nowhere Nobody, is where the moment of real insecurity shines through, and
mm,
it leaves the album off in tonally an easier place
yeah.
because you're seeing under a lot of the scorn that has defined so much of the album up until this point. And so it leaves you in a more sympathetic place if maybe you're the type of person to hear all this come out of Ariana and like
Yeah.
shrug and be standoffish about it. There's something, I don't want to say more real, but you get what I mean when I say that
No.
she's going for something a little bit more sympathetic on
Yeah.
the last leg of this album that made it inviting to revisit as we've been
Hmm.
preparing to do this review. And so I think that's a really good feature that this album has that's going to make it age, I think, interestingly.
I
Whereas I
think
feel
this
like
album's gonna
Eternal
age
Sunshine,
well, I hope.
yeah, whereas I think Eternal Sunshine is frankly not going to age well at all.
I'd almost argue that it already hasn't. It feels like a bit of an intermediary release between bigger moments.
And so I think that this, for better or worse, is going to be the album that defines Ariana's 2020s.
Hmm.
And in my case, I like what this offers to her oeuvre.
I do
I
too.
find this incredibly fascinating and just really fun to listen to. Like at the end of the day, this is just a fun, really well constructed pop album. And that's
Hmm.
what I wanted more than anything else.
Again, those Swedish pop producers, they never stop being good. Like I take a look at all of the credits on here. Like this is everything you would want out of a normal 2026 pop album, but with a little bit more than that too. It's, not quite on the level, but I think that it's interesting that a lot of the notable pop releases this year are about pop figures reclaiming their own narrative. Like, I mean, obviously the best example here is Olivia Rodrigo kind of just narrativizing her own life so successfully that she's just catapulted to the top of the list right now. But
Madonna as well fits
Madonna
into
as well,
this.
like recontextualizing her entire past. It's these people who were coming and being like, I have a messy ass life and a messy ass persona, and I'm going to arrange it in a way in an album that makes sense to people. And I like that. It means that pop music is remaining ambitious. It means that pop music is not just about who's got the hits. It's not about who's at the top of the charts. It's about who is actually putting forward the best body of work right now. And I think that Ariana, for a while, has kind of been lacking in that department, but this is the first time this decade where she has completely won me over. Maybe I just need a little bit of a break. Maybe we needed to separate for a while and then come back and then figure out that, hey, maybe there was some magic there all along. But, just everybody get the help you need, especially if you have the resources to do so, please.
And pop fans,
Be
be
normal
normal.
about literally anything challenge. Please.
I love that we did not rehearse that, by the way.
Nope.
Big thumbs up for Ariana
Thumbs up.
Grande. Jake, you said that this was not technically a review for you, but I think I managed to yank it out of you.
I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did. It's difficult just because reviewing music in the modern day feels dangerously close to reviewing human beings with the way that we have to interact with criticism. So the line gets weird and gray and blurry
Yeah.
very, very easily, especially
Y-
when music is like so like, it's not the 60s anymore, and pop songs aren't about getting in cars and going on dates and shit. It's about like, the fact that you'll think that you're gonna die alone because you're fucking miserable and shit.
Spintano made a video saying that Ariana is fine and healthy and is maybe
Yeah, I love that pop music is also sociology and is also a gossip column now. It's definitely good for the craft of criticism.
Yeah, because it's not like we also had another genre recently that flirted with being TMZ a little bit too hard, and that didn't crash and burn it all. Oh, wait a minute. But hey, at least Drake's in the headlines again.
If you would like to support the show, you can do so by joining our YouTube membership. You can get access to our Discord server. We've been chatty in there lately. It's been
Yeah,
really
got some new
nice.
folks in there. Yeah, yeah,
It's been
yeah.
good. So thank you to all
Yeah.
the new folks that have joined and let us know what's dropping today that you might want us to review next week. We might consider it. Let us know what you're listening to. Let us know what you thought of these albums. And as always,
Rock over London. Rock on Chicago. Adidas. Impossible is nothing. Sure.
that's that's like
Yeah, right? It's like, shouldn't it be nothing is impossible? But okay.
anything is possible.
Kim possible.